Bishop Alexander Macdonell was born on July 17th, 1762 in Scotland. He was ordained a priest on the 16th of February 1787 in Spain and was the first Roman Catholic bishop of the Diocese of Kingston, Upper Canada. Before coming to Canada, he was a chaplain with the Scottish Glengarry Fencibles, a military regiment that saw battle during the Irish Rebellion of 1798. As a priest of 1792 in the Highlands of Scotland, Father Macdonell was concerned about the poverty of his people and the evictions from their homes during the Highland clearances. At that time, it was very difficult to be a Catholic in a Protestant area, but the priest persuaded Glasgow businessmen to provide jobs to his people, and also acted as their interpreter because they spoke Scottish Gaelic and not Scottish English. By May 1792, Father Macdonell was able to find work for about 800 Highlanders in Glasgow. 2 years later, export trade was declining and many jobs were lost. Again, through Father Macdonell's efforts, he was able to convince the government under the monarchy of King George III to enlist the men as the Catholic military regiment so they could be able to earn an income. This idea was approved and the Glengarry Fencibles militia was formed with Father Macdonell named the first Catholic chaplain of a British army since the Reformation. The Glengarry Fencibles saw action in Ireland during the Rebellion of 1798. Father Macdonell's presence as chaplain made sure that the regiment distinguished itself by its humanity, respecting the holiness of life during times of war. Soon after the rebellion, most of the soldiers found themselves without jobs, poor and desperate. Father Macdonell then asked the government if the regiment members could be given a parcel of land in Canada for their military service. This was granted, and Father Macdonell eventually led the veteran soldiers to Canada for a better life. Father Macdonell arrived at York, Upper Canada, which is now known as Toronto, on November 1st, 1804. He began to settle the people on the lands that were given by the British government. These parcels of land would be called Glengarry, Upper Canada. At the same time, Father Macdonell was assigned to the mission of St. Raphael's, which became his headquarters for the next 25 years. As the immigration of Catholic Scots continued into Canada, much due to his own efforts, Father Macdonell had to travel throughout the province, sometimes on horseback, sometimes in canoes, and sometimes on foot, to carry out his priestly duties. In 1820, Father Macdonell was installed as a bishop in Quebec. 6 years after that, on February 14, 1826, he became the first bishop of Upper Canada and Kingston. Bishop Macdonell's knowledge of the country, its people, and his great administrative skills earned him a good reputation with the government. On October 12, 1831, he was called to the Legislative Council of Upper Canada, which meant that he held the title Honorable Bishop Macdonell. From 1832 to 1839, Bishop Macdonell lived in Toronto in a house built for him on the southeast corner of Nelson and Duchess Streets, today known as Jarvis and Richmond Streets. The house still stands and has been designated as a heritage building, although it is now a restaurant known as Mystic Muffin. The spirit of Bishop Macdonell may still live at the Mystic Muffin Cafe, where customers are greeted by name by friendly owner Elias McCool, who has been known to provide free sandwiches to those most in need in that area. Bishop Macdonell died from pneumonia on January 14, 1840, at the age of 77 in Scotland, while on a mission to raise money for a seminary college in Canada. He was initially buried in Scotland, but his remains were eventually brought to Canada and placed in St. Mary's Cathedral in Kingston on September 26, 1861. During his life in Canada, he founded many churches and schools. By the time he passed away, Bishop Macdonell established 48 churches pastored by 30 priests, plus a seminary and a college. He left a legacy following his death, with the naming of the town of Alexandria in Glengarry, Ontario, after him, a street in Kingston, Ontario, a high school in Guelph, Ontario, and more recently in 2019, an elementary school in the heart of downtown Toronto, known as Bishop Alexander Macdonell Catholic Elementary School. Bishop Macdonell was a very important figure in the history of Toronto, Canada, and Scotland.